In September 2010, Nathan Tinkler took on the Newcastle Jets club licence after it was stripped from original owner Con Constantine. Today, less than 18 months later, he returned the licence to Football Federation Australia, citing losses of $12 million.
The Hunter Sports Group will not be fielding a Newcastle Jets team in the 2012-2013 A-League season. The A-League competition is financially unsustainable and the clubs are losing between $25 and $30 million per year.
The Hunter Sports Group says its relationship with the game's governing body has become unworkable.
The FFA's financial track record is less than encouraging, with a variety of expansion clubs losing substantial money and closing. And the FFA recently confirmed to fund a West Sydney team after club owners last week strongly recommended against the knee-jerk reaction.
The range of issues includes the handling of the insurance of injured Socceroo Jason Kalina. However, the key grievance is the Jets' $5 million licensing fee, which included a huge bonus for FFA consultant and former Sports Group employee Ken Edwards.
Why wasn't other clubs that have changed hands? They said there's been 10 or 12 clubs that have changed hands since the inception of the A-League. Why haven't they paid a $5 million fee as such?
The FFA wasted no time responding, dismissing all claims. CEO Ben Buckley says he expects the Hunter Sports Group to honour its commitment, which means the matter may be headed for the courts.
FFA does not accept that the Newcastle Jets have the right to return their A-League licence. FFA remains committed to a sustainable 10-club Hyundai A-League, and that should include the Newcastle Jets.
The decision has clearly left players and staff in shock.
I saw a big future in this club and I just can't believe that it's over.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
It was in broadcast on the media, the fact that we had these concerns for the young fella, and as a result of that broadcast, I believe the parents of another young fella rang us up and informed us that the missing young fella was staying at their place.
Independence is something that most of us take for granted, but for those people with physical or intellectual disabilities at Cessnock's Endeavour Villas, it's something to be proud of. But in Cessnock, there's a waiting list for specially designed disability accommodation. Plans for a new $10 million 12-bed project set to provide some relief.
This really takes the whole process to another level and provides an integrated community where people with disability can live in an environment that not only is flexible but also includes a range of people that come together as a community.
Boasting a health facility, hydrotherapy pool and 6 double units, the development will be built at the St Philip's School site. It's next door to Endeavour Industries, for many their place of employment.
Both from a supported employment point of view as well as assisting them with community programs and their daily living needs.
Peace of mind for those who spend their lives caring for people living with a disability.
One of the real challenges for people who have a child with a disability is what happens to them when they age and when they eventually pass on. And being able to try this transition living option, I think gives them a real sense of purpose.
Work will start on the project next year. Christy Reading, NBN News. Plagued with potholes, Pecolban roads have long been on the region's fix-it list.
To be fair to the local council, they do their very best to try and address that issue as soon as they can with limited funds.
$20 million in state government funding has been secured to resurface McDonald and Broke roads, but just how or when it will be rolled out hasn't been set in concrete. Another 4,000 tourists making their way across the roads on the long weekend.
Naturally, we have quite strong feedback from our customers in relation to our roads, and we want to really focus on the positive aspects of addressing the solutions for improving the roads.
Meanwhile, the NRMA wants faster action on an integrated transport plan for the Hunter, a solution to traffic congestion.
So we need this plan to be created ASAP because otherwise every decision that's made, you don't really know whether it's the right decision until you know how it fits the bigger plan, the bigger picture.
Before more damage is done.
We need to see more people on buses and trains, cycling and walking. We need a serious plan that aims to double the amount of people catching public transport. There is no plan for that at the moment. That's what we need to see to seriously reduce congestion here in the Hunter.
Christy Reading, NBN News.
It's a case of people power tackling power bills.
It's a movement of consumers that want to do something about the cost of living in Australia.
The Hunter Big Electricity Switch aims to track down 1,000 local households who are fed up with the rising price of power. Campaign organisers will then bargain with electricity suppliers on their behalf to slash electricity and gas bills.
If we can get enough families in the Hunter together to all negotiate together, we're very confident we'll get a group discount. But ultimately it's up to individuals to then decide, is the offer right for them? Do they want to switch? Do they want the savings?
While it may sound too good to be true, believe it or not, the initiative has worked elsewhere. In Victoria, a similar campaign managed to secure a 16% discount for some residents. But this is the first time the movement has been launched in a regional area. Organisers say the Hunter was an obvious choice.
It's really simple because electricity price rises are hurting people in the Hunter. There's lots of families up here, there's lots of people with lots of kids, and every time they open the bill they get bill shock because they're so surprised how much electricity prices are going up.
To register, go to onebigswitch.com.au. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
The A-League competition is financially unsustainable and the clubs are losing between $25 and $30 million per year.
FFA does not accept that the Newcastle Jets have the right to return their A-League licence.
There's nothing for us to worry about or focus on other than the disappointment of a lot of good blokes, haven't got a job today.
The Hunter has produced more than its fair share of footballing legends, but the story of our national teams makes for tough reading. KB United set attendance records back in the old NSL, but in 1984 they were consigned to the pages of history. The Newcastle Breakers returned to the fold in 1991, then folded before the new millennium. Today's decision looks to have left the Jets on the scrap heap.
You know, we've got that much passion in this region and we've got a proud history of football, so it's something that we really are upset about.
Proud Novocastrian and Jets CEO Robbie Middleby was left shattered, still trying to make sense of the situation.
Not to have an A-League club is devastating, but you know, something has to be wrong for that many owners and that many clubs to be in this situation.
The fans took to social media sites such as Twitter to voice their anger and disappointment. Having recently resurrected his career, Michael Bridges is now in limbo. Tarek Elrich is urging fans to keep the faith. Ryan Griffiths only recently signed a 2-year contract extension.
You just wish that it could change, that, you know, you wake up from this bad dream, but it's going to happen, and, you know, I've got to make some decisions now and figure out my future.
Jets Advisory Board Chairman Ray Bartz couldn't speak on camera today, but he did tell NBN News he's hoping to meet with FFA CEO Ben Buckley to ensure Newcastle is represented in the A-League. The players have been assured they'll be given plenty of assistance to find a new club. For some, that's not an easy thing to consider.
For myself, you know, I've got a pregnant wife, and it's really difficult to understand what's happening at the moment, where my future lies.
The youth side looks to have survived the cut. The women's team not so lucky.
We'd like to continue fielding the Jets or a Hunter Sports Group youth team in the local competition, which started on the weekend. But the W League will be the same as the A League team, and that licence will be handed back.
It's no consolation for Jets fans, but Troy Palmer did clarify the Knights won't be affected.
There's bank guarantees in place. There's there's a lot of those factors that have been planned for in the deal that was struck between the Knights members and Hunter Sports Group.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Almost unrecognisable, the light plane's charred remains lay twisted in a paddock 28 kilometres northwest of Moree. The 38-year-old pilot from St George in Queensland was killed on impact.
On arrival at the property, emergency services were confronted with a single-engine agricultural air tractor that had impacted on the ground.
The aircraft, which had been en route from St George to Moree, burst into flames after hitting the ground.
There were no other passengers on board, he wasn't working, and we don't know the cause of the accident.
Police warned the accident could have triggered a wider emergency had the aircraft been carrying chemicals at the time.
There were no chemicals on board the plane, which is good, so that reduced any sort of potential for danger. Of course, there's always fuel on board, but no chemicals.
Police will join with Civil Aviation Safety Authority investigators tomorrow morning to help determine the cause of the crash. In Moree, Simone Cameron, NBN News.
Hunter Sports Group is now in damage control.
There's a number of issues here that people need to be conscious of, and we were forced into this decision with our dealings with the FFA.
Dealings, it says, became simply too difficult. That's laughable, according to the FFA.
Myself and the chairman, Frank Lowy, have repeatedly said that we would come and meet with them. We had a meeting in the diary some 2 weeks ago, which was cancelled at short notice.
There was a waste of time in meeting them, and we said we're open to meet with them, still open to meet with them as of today, if they want to be open and transparent and answer our questions.
So until we actually know where the licence sits, it's pretty hard to decide where or what is actually going to go on.
HSG remains adamant it's not using the move as a tactic to broker a new deal with the FFA.
Not at all. This is an important matter, and we would not use this as a negotiation strategy.
Football Australia's Clive Palmer has also weighed into the battle, announcing yesterday's development will be investigated as part of an inquiry into the state of the game. But while HSG and the FFA continue to lock horns, there's growing disappointment on the streets of Newcastle.
I feel like he's abandoned the team. He sort of tries to paint himself as this big man of the town, and he sort of seems to have let it go. I'm actually really surprised he's done it.
When you make a contract, Nathan Tinkler, he should fulfil a contract. It's 2020.
Players and fans have mobilised on social media site Twitter, with striker and leading goal scorer Ryan Griffiths calling on supporters to band together. And that's exactly what's happened. Within hours, a rally at Hunter Stadium for the 20th of April was being organised.
We're never going to surrender, and we're going to fight for this tooth and nail.
I think it's all got to come together, and we'll have our team. We're Novocastrians. We'll stick together and make this happen.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
The phone's already run hot at Newcastle's Fire Communications Centre. So far this year, it's dispatched crews to more than 14,000 jobs. Now it's about to put a whole lot more on the road. From the end of next month, similar centres at Katoomba and Wollongong will close, with all calls directed to Sydney and Newcastle.
It's largely because of the workload they currently do. The Katoomba Communications Centre handles about 4% of our workload, and the Wollongong Communications Centre handles about 8% of the workload.
The Hunter will not only be picking up the slack, it'll also be taking on some of Sydney's workload. A new comms centre is now under construction and 6 new personnel will be put on mid-year. The Fire Brigade Employees Union brokered a deal to ensure no jobs are lost and is cautiously welcoming the move.
The only question we've really got left is how well will the comms work statewide under the new system, and how will the staff still in comms cope with the increased workload.
A new computer system is also being rolled out, which will see calls diverted to the first available operator at Sydney or Newcastle if one centre is too busy.
We don't expect it to have any negative impact on response times, and in fact there's probably going to be a reduction in the time it takes to receive 000 calls.
Kath Landers, NBN News. In the 1970s, Auntie Jack hit our screens with a bang. The man behind the icon, Graham Bond, has now signed up to revisit his glory days in his new autobiographical stage show, My Imaginary Family.
This show's not just about, a success. I mean, Auntie Jack was a terrific success and probably, obviously, my best-known character. But I think some of the things, the lessons I've learned most out of my life and my career so far is learning how to recover from the failures.
And there were plenty of slip-ups. The Auntie Jack show won hearts across the nation as well as a Logie, but that didn't go smoothly.
So I got up to make my acceptance speech and I said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for this award. I'd just like to say this is the most important thing that has happened to me today.
Well, the audience laughed and I went back and the sponsor said, get out of here. It was TV Week. They said, we're never going to write about you again.
Bond also plans to shed light on his character's sudden demise.
I'd realised that it was just a one-trick pony. It was one joke: rip your bloody arms off, and that was it. And so I didn't know what to do. So I thought, well, how can I get rid of her? So I killed her.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Oh, just be patient with each other. Oh, just put up with whatever annoys you and just don't take any notice.
The big names were there, but at last night's A-League Awards there was a notable absence: the Jets. Instead, the FFA took aim at the club.
Myself and the chairman, Frank Lowy, have repeatedly said that we would come and meet with them. We had a meeting in the diary some 2 weeks ago, which was cancelled at short notice.
We said we'd love to attend that meeting. However, we're not attending it unless we get some answers and get some outcomes. You know, we've been to meetings in the past which were just a complete waste of time.
NBN News understands many clubs are angry at the decision by the FFA to form a new Western Sydney club when others need financial help.
It's a complete fallacy. There was overwhelming endorsement of bringing a team into Western Sydney.
Jets coach Gary Van Egmond hopes to see a sustainable team in Newcastle, privately or publicly owned.
And if it can't be sustainable in either of those models, then obviously it's something in regards to within the FFA that may need to change.
Already being linked to Sydney FC, the premiership winning coach is yet to face up to leaving the Jets for a second time.
I haven't really thought of it too much, to be honest with you. On a personal note, it's more so ensuring about the players and trying to assure where their futures lie.
They'll be paid by the Jets at least until the end of the financial year. Northern New South Wales Football says the real loser is the Hunter.
Well, no matter how we try and spin it, football's presence in the region is going to be diminished if there's no A-League side. It's as simple as that.
And what about juniors aspiring to become a Jet?
And it's going to be that little bit harder if there's no A-League and W-League team in our region.
The future of the Youth League side is a little more secure. It'll keep playing in the NBN State League. Kevin Messam, NBN News.
Weighing in on the Jets' crisis, Clive Palmer's rival group, Football Australia. In Newcastle today, Gary Collis, who's heading an FA-commissioned inquiry into the state of the game.
I would say that it's in turmoil, it's in disarray, and that's not directing all of the blame at any individual or any organisation, but what we need to do is have some common sense.
And when it comes to the state of the Jets?
It's not a team you're losing, it's individuals who have families who rely on this club for their income.
Taylor Regan, one Newcastle player to front the inquiry, desperate for answers.
We came here with an open mind. We're not representing the Newcastle Jets or anybody like that. We just came here just to see, where they think football's going in Australia and in the Hunter region, and hopefully somehow we can find something out that can help save us.
It's about the supporters who have given many match days to come and support the club, so they deserve something better than two organisations sitting a mile apart threatening legal action.
With the FFA reportedly preparing a lawsuit against Hunter Sports Group, rumoured to be worth anywhere between $30 and $100 million, the future of the Newcastle Knights is now in question. That's because legal experts say the FFA can pursue legal action against all companies in the Hunter Sports Group stable. HSG remains adamant its Jets' decision has no impact on the Knights.
I'm sure it's affecting their players, but no, not ours, mate. We're just concentrating on I suppose, what we can handle, and that's got nothing to do with the soccer.
But Mr. Collis believes the Jets can be saved.
You set up a group to work through the issues, not Mr. Tinkler, not Mr. Palmer, not Frank Lowy, but a group of people agreed by both parties, sit down, work through those issues, and let's ensure that come the start of the season, Newcastle Jets are still a powerhouse.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
They fought for our country and now they say they're fighting to stay above the poverty line. Veterans under the Defence Force Retirement Benefits Scheme say their retirement payments fall short of promises made by the federal government back in 1973.
While it did go along in that direction for a while, has, in the hard cold light of day in the last 20 years or so, fallen over.
Defence Force personnel qualify for the pension after 20 years of service, but former Air Force supply specialist Barney Ward admits he's one of the lucky ones. Colleagues are doing it far tougher.
This flight sergeant, I might add, if you look at his DFRDB income in relationship to the age pension, there's about $6,000 a year difference.
The Alliance of Defence Service Organisations Fair Go campaign aims for just that.
We are just trying to get the government to admit that they did the wrong thing when they bounced the Defence Forces Retirement and Death Benefits Amendment Bill in 2010.
And they also want benefits brought in line with the cost of living.
All we want the government to do is to try and restore a little bit of the indexation measurement system.
For more on the campaign, visit the Alliance website. Christy Reading, NBN News. They're world leaders in stroke research and they're helping make the Hunter even more prominent on the medical map. Coming from Europe, the US, Africa and Asia, researchers and clinicians have arrived in Newcastle for the 11th International Stroke Genetics Conference, sharing results, discoveries and the latest technologies.
In this sort of area of work, it's very much a numbers game. You need large numbers of patients and cases to come up with the answers. It's a very complex investigation looking at the genetics of stroke.
Researchers now believe our genetic makeup holds the key to better stroke prevention and faster recovery. And with stroke the leading cause of disability, it's research that can't come soon enough.
When we identify these, we can then look at the genes, work out why the genes are causing that effect, and hopefully then understand better the causes of stroke at a molecular and cellular level.
The global push came as local researchers unveiled a new clot-busting drug producing amazing results for acute stroke.
And if you look at the advances in technology, genetics is an area where we're likely to make new discoveries, driven by technology but also driven by the fact that we've learned a lot about the environmental risk factors for stroke.
Christy Reading, NBN News.
Years of late nights, cramming and study, all for this moment. Today, 670 students from the health faculty graduated from the University of Newcastle, all ready to begin the next chapter of their lives. For occupational therapy graduate Alison Francis, there was even more to celebrate. She received a prize for excellence, another for high achievement in research, and the prestigious University Medal.
It's really nice. I think all I would say about it really is that you reflect your peers, and it's such a good group. And with so many good people around you, you can't help but to, do well yourself.
It's in recognition of not only her academic success but social contribution alongside fellow graduate Joel Pilgrim. As first years, the duo formed the Occupational Therapy Student Staff Committee as a way of uniting their peers.
There's a lot of friendships formed, and people are so much more willing to, give each other a hand on assignments and work through things together, which makes the whole university experience so much easier.
Joel found himself just one of 7 males out of almost 80 OT students.
It can be good, sometimes can be bad, but I'd just encourage any guy to give it a go.
Meanwhile, another thing worth celebrating lies below the university's Priority Research Centre for Energy. The invention, known as a Granex power plant, uses heat to create electricity. It will soon be operating at the Forum thanks to a $770,000 grant from the Australian Solar Institute.
The heat sink of the swimming pool here was ideal for our purposes, so it was really a win-win, reduce their power costs and allow us to continue doing our demonstration and research.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Knights coach Wayne Bennett was busy doing his homework today as he prepares to face his former club, but he still had time to stir up Akili Iwate.
Can we start again? Because Wayne's got me.
The Knights appear yet to reach their full potential this year, but they say the combinations are improving.
I think the Knights are going good. We just need to improve in holding the ball.
One positive has been the performance of workhorse Chris Houston. The back rower is pressing for an Origin recall after a 3-year absence.
It's hard to say, mate. The one thing New South Wales has got is a lot of great back rowers. And obviously I'd love to play if I get an opportunity, but I can't really think that far ahead at the moment.
But what is on his mind is that dramatic first-round loss, courtesy of Jamie Soward.
Yeah, they were lucky that day and we probably had an opportunity to win the game there, but it's going to be close again Friday night, there's no doubt about that.
Young gun Tyrone Roberts has stepped into the halfback role nicely for the injured Kurt Gidley. The Dragons are well aware of his potential as well as his partner at 5'8".
They've got some really smart halves. Jared Mullen's playing some really good footy, obviously Darius out the back. So look, we've got our hands full with this week.
Kevin Mettam, NBN News. Crew members aboard Camper found themselves working round the clock when the boat's bow was damaged by brutal Southern Ocean conditions. They were forced to dock for repairs here on the west coast of Chile, adding an extra 10 days to the epic Auckland to Cape Horn leg.
We got away this morning at 3 a.m. local time, so we started the motor sail the 170 miles back to the point where we need to resume racing.
The crew did everything it could to stay mentally strong, knowing the repairs had put an extra 3,200 kilometres on an already punishing leg.
So then obviously engine off and back into much more of a race mode. Certainly we need to get the boat as fast as we possibly can to Itajaí, but also safely.
Skippered by Lake Macquarie's Chris Nicholson, it was a massive psychological milestone to get to Cape Horn. There are 4 legs remaining in the race. Closer to home, there was just as much passion being shown by the New South Wales under-18 girls hockey side, which took on Queensland at the Australian Championships in Newcastle today. Mariah Williams is enjoying the week. The South Newcastle junior tenacious in attack.
Amazing. Nah, it's pretty good. I've got some fairly good players in our team. It's good to be under their control.
The Queenslanders dominated early, but the execution wasn't there. In the second, the home side threw itself back into the game and the girls in blue quickly capitalised. Jubilation for goal scorer Jessica Watterson. In a tense finish, New South Wales held on to win 1-0. Competition continues for another week. Kevin Messam, NBN News.
These landholders say mining is a nuisance neighbour they'd rather see the back of. Today they took aim at the sector and the state government.
It's not about our towns and it's certainly not about our people. They don't talk about our rights at all and they need to listen.
They oppose the state's land plan for mining and agriculture.
When you read the first 94 pages, you think this is a load of well-fabricated material.
The size of the expansion that's currently in the pipeline is enormous compared to what we're currently experiencing. So that is the key concern.
If we miss out, society will miss out. If we don't produce food, you won't eat.
Protesters wore their message across their hearts and on their sleeves.
The government, within a stroke of a pen, can wipe $1,000 an acre off your country. It's just unbelievable.
The heat continued inside the community forum. Planning Minister Brad Hazzard and Resources Minister Chris Harcher the targets.
We recognise that the process that we're doing is very difficult. It's a challenge.
Why can't we protect special areas now and consider mining only when we desperately need it?
Not always giving the audience what it wanted to hear.
We do have to find money for hospitals, roads, schools. We have resources. Folks, it's a reality.
Today's turnout and forum only stoking the campaign fire.
The start.
Christy Reading, NBN News.
A dry topic for most, but one that has some public transport passengers in a flap, the future of rail, roads and buses in the Hunter. Today, the state government hit town to garner public opinion on local transport needs.
I think that the rail into the city is still quite important for the region and also for visitation into Newcastle. Obviously, connecting that line with buses and other forms of transport is also important.
One issue which has been a traffic stopper of late, cutting the rail line, drew little debate. Newcastle MP Tim Owen remains confident its fate will be decided in the final master plan due in November.
Most certainly, I would suggest so.
There's no such certainty for the inclusion of the Western Freight Bypass, the final stage of the inner city bypass linking Rankin Park to Jesmond, or the Glendale Transport Interchange.
It's being considered by the government. We need to finish it, and I think everybody's aware that it's going to be a vital transport link for this region.
The main points raised at today's forum were the need for greater public transport in the suburbs and the need for more integration of existing transport modes. There was also a push to get freight trains off the inner city rail line. Making life easier for cyclists also rated a mention.
Alternate transport to the traditional means that we use to get around the Hunter, and that is everyone driving around on their own in cars.
Kath Landers, NBN News.
This sound is enough to turn anyone, well, batty. These flying foxes have set up home in residential lawn. Amid concerns over health and safety, Maitland Council and the community want them moved along. Exactly how is up to residents, with a draft plan going on display.
Then Council will have to consider what action it wishes to pursue. We do need to lodge an application with the Office of Environment and Heritage.
The plan lists several options, from learning to live with the bats to culling them or using noise and lights to shoo them away. Modifying nearby buildings with sound barriers, overhead covers and double glazed windows is another alternative, as is creating an artificial habitat to lure them away. But whatever the option, Council admits it has to act fast.
There is a limited opportunity in terms of when you can actually take action against them because of their breeding cycle, and that is in this next few months. So we would like to make a decision very quickly.
The plan is on public exhibition until April 24. Christy Reading, NBN News.
He started his television career with NBN, and he played first grade rugby for Merriweather Carlton and first grade cricket for Newcastle City. So it was appropriate that we came back here with the family to celebrate his life with a lot of his friends.
Brendan Glenn's love affair with the surf began as a little boy, and it's this passion and his confidence in the water which saved a young family.
I come over the top of a wave and these three Japanese people were waving and calling out for help.
A couple and their teenage son were swimming near rocks on the far northern end of Barooby Beach just over a fortnight ago when they were caught in a rip. Frantic and desperate and struggling to keep their heads above water, Brendan swam out to the trio and pulled them onto his bodyboard.
I had the arm rope around my arm and just started dragging them back in. I couldn't get them in by myself because there was three of them.
He managed to keep all three afloat until lifeguards arrived.
Putting his life at danger, and that, I know not many 12-year-olds would be able to do that, so yeah, I'm very proud.
It would have ended a lot worse if Brendan hadn't been there, and I really commend his bravery for being able to do such a good job.
The northern end of the beach is a known trouble spot, and there have been several near drownings in the area. Where the family got into trouble is more than 500 metres away from lifeguards' patrol area. So it's thanks to Brendan's quick thinking that this family's holiday didn't end in tragedy. And it seems the 12-year-old's natural instinct to help people will serve others well in the future. His dream is to join the police force. Do you consider yourself a bit of a hero?
Yeah, a little bit.
Stephanie Jeans, NBN News.
Last season's Newcastle Rugby League Grand Final was one of the best in years. Man of the match Mick Moran won't be the only one missing when the Pickers and Rosellas renew hostilities tomorrow. Maitland has also lost PJ Ellis, but it's added a host of new faces.
Eni Folau, he's come from Parramatta. Ryan Walker, who was at the Windsor Wolves. Josh Griffiths, who was at Curry. And Darcy Ettridge, JB Patton at Cessnock, and Matt Marshall.
Wests are missing 8 from the side which lost in Golden Point, while club captain Jermaine Ale will miss most of the season with a bicep injury. Having added the likes of former Knight Matt Kennedy, the club is confident it has the troops to be a force again this season.
Blokes like Joel Penny and Matt Thurston are experienced NRL players that will do a job for us.
Rival coaches agree Cessnock will also be in the mix as Maitland attempts to win 3 straight premierships.
I think Maitland going for 3 grand finals in a row is a great challenge for anybody, and I think they've lost some, but I think they've still recruited pretty well. So it's still a tough test, and it'll just tell us where we're at.
The new coach is looking forward to the challenge.
There is pressure, but if you ask anyone or any coach, I suppose that's why they coach. You know, they enjoy the battle.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. He's helped Wanderers and Merewether win a grand final, but few expected Dan Kevill to be back in green this season. Despite today's news, the defending premiers have lost a host of high-profile players, including grand final hero Billy Coffey and Anderson medal winner Mark Wade to the Knights. So are the Greens ripe for the picking?
They will field a strong side across all grades, and we're expecting that. So nothing taken lightly. For us, it's like New South Wales and Queensland. It's one of those games that you find that extra energy, you find that extra passion.
With Sean Rudder ruled out for a month with a hamstring tear, Sam Bright returns to the top grade at 5/8 and will take on the kicking duties. Sam Clifton returns at fullback after a serious injury ruled him out of last season's finals campaign.
Body's come along pretty well. It's been it's a long 8 months, couple ups and downs, but pretty confident on it and looking forward to getting back into it tomorrow.
Beaten grand finalists Hamilton will look to bounce back this season and provide outgoing coach Scott Coleman with a premiership. The Hawks were relatively stable in the off-season, but their strong 2011 showing has seen 6 players added to the New South Wales country side.
I think we lose them for 6 games out of the first 8, so that might be a little bit difficult, but in saying that, our second grade were quite strong last year, so we can call on them.
In other games this weekend, Maitland will take on Southern Beaches, while the Waratahs face Singleton. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Last night, staff at Merewether's Happy Inn became the target of yet another armed hold-up in the Hunter.
As we understand it, they were confronted by 2 men dressed in dark clothing and wearing balaclavas, armed with knives, where they threatened the staff and asked for money. And the staff responded by threatening to throw hot oil, which apparently they'd been preparing at the restaurant.
It's an all-too-familiar story that has Sonia Hornery seething.
That's the 62nd this year, which represents more than one major armed hold-up per day in the Hunter.
Also earning her ire is a back-down from the Police Minister on plans to build a new police headquarters at Glendale.
He's gone back on that commitment and in fact reneged on the people of Wallsend and the Labor voters and is going to be building a police station in Liberal seats and independent seats.
Now that the decision has been made in relation to the submission from the police, they want to see the investment in Toronto, Morisset and of course Belmont.
Our local area commanders are doing the best job that they can with the resources they have, but clearly they don't have enough resources.
Kath Landers, NBN News. It was the last thing Esther expected to find as she returned from a trip down the road, the family home she shares with her mother and young daughter up in flames.
Now everything that I owned, everything that my daughter owned has now gone up in smoke.
Luckily, there was no one home at the time, but 2 family pets are still missing and years of memories destroyed.
All family photos have gone up in smoke, or my complete baby album's gone up in smoke. I was lucky enough to find Luke still in the backyard, and as soon as I walked out the backyard and called him, he came running.
Fire crews have spent almost 2 hours trying to extinguish the blaze, but have been unable to put out flames burning in the roof cavity. Their concern now is for neighbouring properties. It comes less than 24 hours after homes at Wallsend and New Lambton were also destroyed by fire. Kath Landers, NBN News.
He controversially quit Wanderers just last night to move to Merewether, but Dan Kevill's presence wasn't enough to help Carlton in second grade. Clearly there was tension with some former clubmates. In Premier 1, some desperate Merewether defence kept the two Blues at bay. James Wivell put the visitors in front with an early penalty before Sam Bright responded for the Greens. Returning from a serious injury, Sam Clifton looked as dangerous as ever, providing a rare highlight in a mistake-riddled first half. Featuring several new faces, the defending premiers still have to work out some of their combinations. But with the wind at their backs, the Greens finally gave the home crowd something to cheer about after the break. A field goal to Bright gave Merewether breathing space before a late try to Mick Gill capped off a tough 17-point win.
From the ground roots up, everyone's watching with interest.
That's all we got. The Jetsons and Knights, isn't it?
But for how long? As Nathan Tinkler takes on the FFA in court, there's division on what should happen. The headlines have been damaging for both sides already. Whatever way you look at it, most in the know agree a new owner is needed for the Jets.
I think it's gone to the point of no return for the Hunter Sports Group.
Which is now in media lockdown. But Troy Palmer revealed over the phone today that the FFA's loss could be someone else's gain. Its proposal for a Newcastle side in the NBL was on hold. Now it'll be revisited.
Look, we'd always be open for discussion.
And there's also HSG's corporate commitment to a Big Bash team. NBN can reveal Cricket Australia officials will inspect our grounds next month. While Tinkler plays the sporting field, others are kicking their own goals. Northern New South Wales Football has decided at board level to rescue the female Jets.
Obviously, we're really pleased that the W League team's secure.
Northern New South Wales will meet with the FFA this week to discuss the W League proposal, and it'll also talk about the men. Executives say they can run the Jets if they're given financial backing. And maybe there's help at hand. The federal member for Newcastle will meet with the Sports Minister tomorrow. Nat Wallace, NBN News.
With a forward pack featuring reigning Player of the Year Danny Vaughan and Knights recruit Dane Laurie, the Scorpions were always going to be a tough test for the real NRL's newest club. Captain-coach James McCabe did his best to inspire the troops. just a day after his own wedding. Macquarie bombed more tries than it scored in the first half, Nathan Cantor the only one who managed to get across the stripe. The second half was a different story. Laurie got the ball rolling with a seemingly harmless midfield bomb, but when the Sharks gave up possession, the big prop collected the scraps before running 30 metres to double the visitors' lead. The rest of the game was all Scorpions. Shane Beale grabbed his second to cap off a successful start to the season for Macquarie and a home debut the Sharks would rather forget.
The newly promoted Charlestown City went into the clash with Edgeworth on a high after a first-round win last week, but were quickly brought back to earth when Ben Martin's low cross found Justin Tannick. Martin was a constant threat up front for the Eagles, creating space and forcing a great save from Andrew Goldman, but Alex Pelosi was quickest to react and sent Edgeworth to the break 2-0. The Blues returned hopeful, Kyle Hodges getting the best start possible. While Mitchell Wallace was perhaps a little too enthusiastic, his red card didn't slow the momentum. Aaron Pritchard latched onto a great ball from Cameron Cellini to set up a grandstand finish. In the dying seconds, substitute Jared Ross showed great composure to complete the remarkable comeback.